What's going on, guys? This is another episode of the Armstrong Avenue podcast. I'm Big Mike, the host. I'm sitting here with Scott Armstrong. What's up, dude?
Big Mike, what's happening, man?
Oh, man.
Hello, social media world or podcast world or YouTube world or whatever you're watching this on. Hope everybody's having a great December day and getting ready
Yep.
for Christmas. I know I am, and I know the perfect Christmas gift, Big Mike. A,
Bones Coffee?
a subscription to Bones Coffee. Yes.
Hey, that is the perfect gift. And if you're looking to gift your favorite podcast host, Big Mike, the host, I will definitely take a subscription to Bones Coffee.
Me
Speaking
too.
of Bones Coffee, man, I'm going to plug this a little bit. We have we're Bones Coffee has gifted me the opportunity to give away a free bag of Bones Coffee to one of our listeners, which I think is an incredible thing that they've done for us. And it's a bag of the electric unicorn, which everybody knows is my favorite. I know they're listening to me. They sent it to me, said, "Hey man, let's give this thing away. It's the holiday season. So if you are a listener of this podcast and you want to get that bag of Bones Coffee, the one thing you have to do is you have to be a part of the Facebook group, Armstrong Avenue Podcast Fans. It is on Facebook. You can Google it. I will put the link to it in the description of this episode. I cannot wait to give it away to one lucky listener.
One Facebook friend.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, look, that podcast group is great. I started it because I really get this. Our podcast fans are amazing, dude. I don't know if you get the direct messages like I do, but they DM me all the time with, "Dude, I love this episode. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it going. Can you guys talk about this? I love the stories from the family." And we have a community, and I wanted to build this sense of community in this group to where all of our fans could get together and share memories of you and your family and talk about the episodes. And then I'm also in there, so I'm going to be interacting with people.
Well,
It's a
I
great
do.
moment.
I really do appreciate all the positivity. I do. We live in kind of a negative world, and it's a shame. But I have noticed that in those Facebook friends, man, that group of friends, they're always positive, and I really appreciate that. I think everybody, in this day and time, appreciates a little positivity. So, big thank you to all those people. And if you are not if you're not a Facebook friend of the podcast, please join and share. Please share anything you have, old pictures. That's what I really appreciate too, is the old pictures. Wow. I mean, some of those pictures you just go, I don't even remember that. And I know one the other day was my dad and exotic Adrian Street, and they were working out together, both of them in their mid to late 70s. And Adrian had an unbelievable, when he lived here, he lived about, 10 minutes from us and down here in Pensacola. And so uh, he had a great gym. I mean, he had just piece by piece by piece until he turned it into something as nice as anywhere you would go. And he used to call my dad and say, "Bob, hey, let's get together next week and get a workout." And my dad would go every time. And so uh, somebody, I guess Miss Linda, Adrian's wife, had sent the picture, or probably taken the picture. I mean, and so to see that, my dad's been gone a little over 2 years, and so to be able to see that, and now Adrian is moved back to Wales, I believe, and so to be able to see that picture and relive that time in my life and their lives, it was just such a positive, and I really,
Yeah.
really appreciated it.
And that's what this group is all about, man. It's about bringing things out that people wouldn't normally see and just sharing memories, man. And I love it because I get to see it and go, "Man, that's incredible."
And that,
And
well, hey, we talk about the pictures on
yeah,
the podcast. So if you're just listening, you don't get to see the pictures. If you're seeing this on YouTube or on the IWN app, then yeah, you get to see us. But to be able to see those pictures that we're talking about, you have to join the Facebook group.
yeah.
And so please feel free. If you want to be a part of that, please jump on board. We'd love to have you.
Yep. And it's an awesome experience, man. And like I said, I'm going to be giving away a free bag of Bones coffee at a later date. And you got to be a member of the group. That's the one thing. I will pick one member out of it. I'm going to go in. It's going to take me a long time because we've got a lot of people, and I'm going to insert it into this system in the computer, and it's going to pull it. It's just going to automatically randomize, pick somebody from the group, and I'm going to DM them for their mailing address, and I will ship it to you.
And we'll announce the winner on the later
On the podcast.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about our new T-shirt that we don't have yet.
We're still working on that.
Yeah.
You know, collar and elbow.
Yes, collar and elbow. Well, wait, 10% off too if you order from Collar and Elbow.
Armstrong.
So, code Armstrong. So want to get that plug in there, man. And anybody ordering for Christmas, Collar and Elbow, save 10%. It's Christmas time. Everybody wants to save a little dollar.
Yep. You know who did get a new shirt with Collar and Elbow? Zicky Dice, Impact Wrestling superstar.
Good for him.
He has been blowing up on Twitter lately. He's been trending with his "Do we have heat?" It's funny. Awesome. I don't know if you follow Zicky Dice. I see him all the time, and he's posting like, "If you ask me what my finisher is, we have heat," and it just cracks every day. It's something else. That man is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, and Andy's a good dude. So that helps.
Super positive guy in the locker room. Love to have him around. Yeah. He will be January 28th at Main Event Wrestling at the Griffin National Guard Armory. He will be working the legendary Action Mike Jackson.
Yeah, and hey, look, I know the few people I've talked to that are in the office of Main Event Wrestling have said there are limited tickets available. So let's, anybody that's thinking about coming, go on, get them tickets. And where can they get the tickets, Mike?
It's on eventbrite.com. You can type in mewgriffin.eventbrite.com. Check out Main Event Wrestling. I read an article yesterday that was put out by a blogger for Georgia wrestling history by the name of Dust E. Finish.
Sounds credible.
And he said that in 2023, Main Event Wrestling, MEW, could very well become the IT promotion in the state of Georgia.
Are you sure that's not you doing that, Mike?
I promise you it's not me. I wish I had I wish I had I wish I thought of that name first. Dusty Finish. It's literally DUST.E Finish. FINNISH.
My pen name will be I Am Finished.
Hey,
I'm gonna steal part of all that.
It popped me when I read it. It was a good read. It was
sure.
It was a good read. I enjoyed seeing the he put together like it was a basketball roster of independent wrestlers in the state of Georgia based on their region where they wrestle at primarily.
Oh, cool.
And I thought it was a cool, I never seen anything like that. You had first team, second, and he explained why. And I thought it was cool, man. If you haven't checked that out, you can see it on GeorgiaWrestlingHistory.com and their blog. Larry Goodman runs that. It's good. It's good. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's like they just send people out to all the indie promotions, and they write up the stories about what happened, whether it was good or bad. It's
very cool.
If you put on a bad promotion and they come, they're gonna tell everybody that stuff sucked.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's honest opinions is what anybody that runs a company should be after. Honest opinions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you want to know what you're doing wrong to get better.
That's dude. You know how I love to cook, and if I cook something I've never cooked for my family, when we sit down to eat it, I say, okay, y'all talk to me and tell me what did I put too much of this in it? Should I put more of that in it? I said, look, you can't bake a cake, a good cake if all the ingredients aren't in there. So you got to tell me what's up. So that's cool, man. That's cool. There are people out there. Look, you can get on Twitter and you'll see 1,000 out of 999. You'll see 1,000 negative responses.
Yep.
And So it's cool to have somebody go into detail and like that and hear
Yep.
what they have to say. So that, and
Yeah,
that's what we're hoping to get out of our Facebook page. So that's awesome.
definitely. And like I said, go to facebook.com, go to the search bar, type in Armstrong Avenue Podcast Fans. It's a group. Join the group. We just, we're growing every day. But the thing is, I don't care how many people we have in there. That
Yeah.
doesn't affect me. I'd love to have 1 million people in the group because that means we have 1 million people who listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
But what I want is I want a, you know, I don't want 1 million just random people. I'd rather have 100 dedicated people who love what we're putting out and communicate with us, and just that makes it fun to me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And
The conversation.
and
And the thing is look, if you have a memory about anything in the wrestling business, it's cool to share it with somebody else that loves, you
yeah,
know, the fun of it all as much as you do. So that's cool, man.
yep, it's great. But hey, dude, look. So I told you the other day about what I've been working really hard on putting this podcast together. But before we get into that section, I want to mention what happened on Monday Night Raw, which me and you have both talked at extensive detail about how much you were personal friends with Umaga, and I was a huge fan of him as a kid growing up, and hit Solo Sokoa did the Samoan Spike on Monday Night Raw, and it was and it just he even had taped up. It was a great homage to Umaga.
Yeah, and I hope he will use that going forward. I do. Look, I know I've told the story on a previous one of our episodes, but if it's cool, I'd love to devote a couple of minutes to talking
Yep.
about him again. So as as the world knew him as Umaga, and but the people close to him knew him as Eki, and so the many of the Samoan dynasty have lived in Pensacola, and a few still live in Pensacola. And so, of course, knew the entire family, starting with Afa and Sika, all the way down, kids, cousins, all of them, as I grew up and as they grew up. And so, um, to when WCW kind of came to an end, and it kind of went to WWF/E in what, 90 or whatever year that was. I mean, I'm sorry, 2000 or whatever year that was. But anyway, when that happened, I did not get picked up by WWFE, whatever. I didn't get picked up. And so I got a real job, like normal human beings do, and so I got a job with a furniture company, and I don't know. Before I knew it, 5 years had gone by, and I was the dad that was home every night with my kids and having dinner and helping with homework, and I'd never been that because I'd always been on the road with the wrestling business, and providing for the wife and kids, but not home every night to be a part of everyday life. And so I had been doing that for about 5 years, with this furniture company, started as just the guy that helped lift furniture, put it on the truck, to ended up the guy that owned the furniture company literally said, "I'm going to open another store and I want you to manage it." And oh man, fantastic. I mean, I like people and talking to people, and so there I was at this furniture store working as the manager and had people under me. And all of a sudden one day, Eki walks through the door to buy his mom a recliner. And so he walks in and we go, "Hey, oh my," because I hadn't seen him and I don't even know how long. And we walk around. I mean, this is a true story too. When Eki was 17 years old, he would get checked out of high school early in the day to make a wrestling show and work against me and my dad. And that's the truth. He was 17 and he was a big dude, and he could go, and he was 17. And get checked out. Can you imagine getting checked out early to then go to a wrestling show and you're wrestling Bob Armstrong? Yeah, it's like the coolest thing ever. But anyway, so I hadn't seen him in years. I mean, since he was a real young dude, and now at that time he was with he was with WWE, and he walks in the door and we see each other, and oh my gosh, and you know talk for a little bit, and we talk about furniture, and then before he leaves he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, dude, I'm wrestling kind of spits you out, and here I am." And on the day that we had this conversation, I remember it vividly. I had just turned 45 years old, 45, and he goes, "Yeah, you gotta come back to the wrestling business." And I said, "No, dude, I'm good, man. I'm home every night with my family. I've never been there, so it's cool to be a part of." And he said, "No," and I'll never forget this line, man. He said, "There's no Armstrong that should not be in the wrestling business. It's just where you should be." And I started laughing, and I said, "Hey, dude, I appreciate you saying that, man. Thank you. That means as much to me as anything." And he said, "No, I'm not kidding." And he said, "All right, well, hey, great to see you." We hugged. I don't see him for about a month. And one day he walks back through the door and says, "Hey, can we talk somewhere?" And I said, "Yeah." And so took him into my office, and we start talking about, he immediately starts talking about wrestling, saying, "Hey man, wrestling business is good right now." And I said, "Yeah, man, I watch it. He goes, "Do you miss it?" I said, "Oh, of course I do, man. It was part of my life from 22 years old to 40." And I said, "Yeah, I do miss it." And he goes, "Okay, good." And he handed me a card and said, uh, "Call. They want to bring you in and use you." And I said, "Oh," I remember begging off and saying, "No, Eki, you don't understand, man. I'm a homebody now. I'm home every night." And he goes, "At least give them a call." He said, "Do it, man. Come on, do it for me." And I realized that dude had gone above and beyond. He actually went back to work and went to somebody and talked about me to them to try to get me a job. And that's a true friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's a real friend. And so I I thought I owe it to him. I of course came home that night and talked to my wife about it, and then and we both said it is worth a phone call. And so I made the call and ended up getting hired. And fast forward, that was in 2006 is when they hired me. And so fast forward to here we are, about to be in 2023, and you know, without that, all those years in and out of WWE, I wouldn't have this podcast. You know what I mean? No, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody would really care about a old dude selling furniture. You know what I mean? And so, and believe me, the stories wouldn't be anywhere near as good. And so, I just, I owe, and my wife and kids, my kids are adults, 30 and 28, and they understand too that Eki is the reason for our season. I mean, without him, I could not have done what I did in WWE. I mean, he is solely responsible for it, is the way I feel. And um, when Solo, he's the baby brother, right? Uso's baby brother. And when he came into, and I'd seen him from when he was just a little boy. The Usos would fly. They lived in Pensacola at the time. And they'd fly in and out of here on the same flights all the time. And I'd see him jump out of the back seat of the car as a little kid, helping them get their bags in the car and all. And he grew up to be a man's man. And so I remember him getting hired. I was at NXT and he got hired at NXT. And I remember he and I sitting down and me telling him this story, and he never knew it. And man, it was just, it's so cool to see that, because that family is a loving family, man. They're family. I mean, they are tight. And to to know that I have a little bit of a heartstring with those dudes means everything to me, man. It really does. But I cannot. I will forever be indebted to Eki. God rest his soul, man. He was. I miss him. To see the tributes the other day on the anniversary of his death was uh, to see the things people said about him. It was man, it was awesome. I mean, yeah, I miss him, and will forever be grateful to him. And that's from my heart, man. He was a good human being to me for sure. That whole family for sure,
Yeah.
but him, he is the reason. You know what I'm saying? He really helped me get back into it all. You know what I mean? Look, I love this. I do, man. It's just that simple. There's not even a question. I can sell you a sofa and love seat. I would much rather tell you about, wrestling the Funk Brothers, me and my brother. You know what I mean? I would much rather do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's a great story, man, and how you got back into the business. Um, but
I owe it all
dude,
to him, dude. That's fact.
hey, speaking of facts, I got a crazy fact for you. Crazy fact. So, we were going to talk about tag team wrestling in this episode.
Hmm.
So your family, dude, I got to pull up this. Your family for years, literally tag team wrestling. I mean,
Yes,
you wrestled with your dad, Steve, Brad. All of you guys are just steeped in tag team wrestling tradition.
for sure.
Do you know the amount of tag team championships that your family has held combined?
Wow, no, I wouldn't. I would not have a clue. I really would not. How do you
Between
know?
research, brother,
You did the homework?
dude, research. I added it up. So between you, your father, Steve, Brad, and Brian, a total of 71
Wow.
tag team championships.
Wow, that's man, that's crazy. Thank you for telling me
I,
that.
I want to say your dad had 36.
Yeah, I was about to say what we none of the boys would have any if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. Yeah, your dad had a lot. Steve had a tremendous amount with
Yeah,
Tracy.
yeah,
Brad had a good bit, and Brian, of course,
yeah,
Hall of Famer in one of
yeah,
the New Age Outlaws, one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
without a doubt. One of
So
the greatest and most entertaining for sure.
so it's crazy to think about how you guys basically took tag team wrestling and changed it and became what people are looking at and studying today.
Well, I appreciate that. I look, I loved it. It was fun, and it was fun to do with your family member, uh, simply because, look, a lot of times you see, oh, here's the new tag team, and then you watch the match, and they just don't gel.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's those guys going to the boss and saying, hey, we want to form a tag team. Sometimes it's the boss making the decision, oh, we can make them a tag team.
Yeah.
And look, either way it can work, but the team just has to gel. And that's something that with a family member, you grew up together, you wrestled together when you were 8, you know what I mean? You watched your dad all growing up.
Practically
So
knew what each other was thinking.
yes, very much so. Or in the ring, just one word, and you immediately knew where you were going after.
Yeah.
when somebody would get really really stiff or reckless with Steve, I he would literally look up at me in the corner and go, "Run a set," and that meant as soon as I tagged in, we were double shooting the guy off and knocking him down, and then I would be legal. So I would shoot him off, knock him down, tag Steve in. He would shoot, we would together shoot him off again. We would run him until the guy was so blown up that he would not be reckless and he would not be stiff anymore. He would be ready to work. And we didn't have to be stiff. We would just run the guy. And because you hit those ropes 10 times in a row, you're going to breathe a little heavy. And there's right now, there's a 20-something-year-old dude listening going, well, I could hit them ropes 10 times. And it wouldn't blow me up. Whatever you say, buddy. Whatever you say. You tell yourself whatever you have to believe to get to where you need to be in this day.
Yep.
But, man, you hit those ropes and come off and get knocked down and have to get right back up and do it multiple times. we were tagging out and taking a breath and coming back in. That dude would not have a choice. But after that, he would always work with us.
That's awesome.
I couldn't help but laugh thinking about that. You know, now at my age, if I hit the ropes one time, you better dial 911.
That's awesome. So so tell me, so everybody talks about like the art of tag team wrestling. You
Yeah.
guys lived it. You breathed it. You basically transformed it. What is, in your opinion, the art of tag team wrestling?
So it's look, every match is taking the audience on a roller coaster ride. That's the goal. And once you get to the 1, 2, 3, the audience, you can hear either the boos or the sigh or the oh or the huge pop. And they will tell you if you had a good match. With tag team wrestling, there is a momentum, and you have to be a team. It's like I was saying a minute ago. If you say, "Oh, we want to be a team," well, it sounds cool on paper. It's like putting together your music and then putting together what your entrance looks like, but you never put together the from the opening bell what it's like to work as one, because it's two people having to work as one. A tag team match will never work if it looks like two singles matches. Every time a guy tags in, it's a singles match, and then he tags out and it's another singles match. You have to look like a team, and if you have to work like a team. And so look, you can buy matching outfits, you can buy the same color outfits, you can wrestle in whatever you want to that makes you look like a team. But if you're tagging in and out and it's looking like a singles match, and then the other team tags out and one guy comes in and you have another match, people look, wrestling fans are not stupid. They see that and they will never connect to that team. And so it's like my brother and Billy, they were the perfect complement of each other. They're both, people to this day meet them and go, "I didn't realize y'all were so big." Well, Billy's like 6'5" and Brian's 6'4", and so to see two guys that big, and my brother'd come in and do all the hibbity dibbity, shake, shake, boom, and Billy was a machine. Billy still is a machine. And so to see those guys together, look, they knew how to put it together, and they weren't related. You know what I mean? They weren't blood, but they clicked. And like I said, wrestling fans, if they didn't click, wrestling fans would have seen through it. They would have. Like I said, you can come out there and say, "Oh, you didn't know, you better call somebody." That's all cool. But when the bell rings, now what? And they could deliver. Well, that's every tag team. And you have to be able to, me and my brothers, we didn't really have much of an entrance, but once we got in the ring, we were, God blessed us with athletic ability, and I will always be thankful for that, for sure. And blessed us with family. And so we clicked. We just did. And look, it helped that each one of us broke into the business in tag team matches. That taught us everything, because it's from day one, it was on the job training. But to me, you just have to click as a team. You have to be a team first before. I mean, literally, if there are two dudes listening to this that go, "Hey, we're training to wrestle and we want to be a tag team," I would say right off the bat, forget trying to think of an entrance right now. Forget trying to think of the great music right now. Forget where you're going to stand when you're being introduced. Forget all that. Learn what to do from the time the bell rings to the time the match ends. Learn that, because after you learn that and get good at it, the rest of it is gaga. You can get the music, you can get the entrance, you can get the light show, you can get all that. And once you sign with WWE, WWE is going to hire you for your work. AEW will hire you for your work. Then Impact will hire you for your work. Then the machine that is behind each of those major companies will get behind your entrance and your light show and your music and all that. Learn how to work first, because I don't care what anybody says. At the end of the day, wrestling. There it is on the poster behind me. Pro wrestling. That sports entertainment. Call it whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, no matter what company you work for, you climb through ropes, bell sounds, and then you perform. And so, how good a performer are you? You know what I mean? And that's tag team wrestling is two performers gelling as one
Yeah.
against two others that hopefully gel as one too. I always think of the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express, those matches from the 80s. Oh my gosh, man. It worked. It just
Yeah.
gelled, man. It worked. And I know that was 40 years ago. So kids today go, yeah, that's old. Well, hey, look, just watch one of them on YouTube. Watch one of those pay-per-view matches on YouTube. They're fun to watch. Watch my brother and Tracy Smothers, God rest his soul. Watch Steve and Tracy wrestle the Freebirds
Yeah.
on the WCW pay-per-views. And I mean, those tag matches and then watch the end of the match, listen for the bell, and then look behind the talent to see the crowd,
Yeah.
because the crowd will tell you if the work was good. And
Yeah.
and man, when you get 15,000 people out of their seats with their arms in the air, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a drug like no other.
Yeah.
uh,
Speaking of that, you brought that up. We see that you brought up the Freebirds and your brother and Tracy, and you see that today with the continue. I don't care how many times I watch the New Day versus the Usos.
oh yeah.
It's they create magic every single
And,
time.
and Mike, you know what the deal is those dudes still care.
Yeah.
They're not saying, paycheck's coming and let's phone this one in. None of them want to phone it in. Every time they have a match together, those guys want to top the last match. And they've had they've had the rivalry or whatever for years. I mean, not just 1 or 2 years. I mean, for years. There's been injuries. There's been this one out. There's
Mhm.
been that one out. They've gone different directions. And every time they come back together, they want to top the last match they had. I'll never forget one time they put them on this was years ago, and they put them on the opening dark match for a pay-per-view. So they were going to start the show in front of the live audience, and then after their match, they start the pay-per-view. So the only people that were going to see it were the people inside the building. And when they came back, I'll never forget looking at those dudes and going, I don't know if that can even be followed all night. I mean, that's how it's a good thing it wasn't on the pay-per-view, because that's how whatever the main event was could not top this match. Yeah, I mean,
That's good. Yeah.
those dudes, yeah, they're unreal. Every time you watch them, it is a treat, and I highly recommend to anybody listening or anybody watching this podcast, if you get the opportunity to see New Day versus the Usos, oh my gosh, man. It's yes, I agree with you 100%. They always bring it and overperform. And
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure for us as viewers/fans. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But for you and your brothers and your dad, was there ever a tag team that no matter how many times you guys worked them, you guys had magic and it was just magic in the ring with the crowd every single time, no matter where you were at?
Yes. The Nightmares. And the Nightmares were a tag team that had gone to Memphis. It was Danny Davis and Ken Wayne, and were their names. And they wore masks. It had one star on the eye. They were about the same size, and at the time they had been working in Memphis for a good while. And then Ole Anderson brought them into Georgia to work against my brother Brad and Tim Horner. They were the Lightning Express or whatever. And like the second week there, Ole uh, said out loud, but not to the Nightmares. He said, "These guys are too small. I can't use them." And my brother Brad I remember like a Saturday night calls my dad and goes, "Hey Dad, there's a team here that they just brought in called the Nightmares." And he said they're not big, about 5'9" or something like that, but they're like one of the best teams I've ever seen, and they're great for doing the southern spots in tag team matches, and their timing is unreal, and they work together like they're twins, and they do because they kind of looked alike. They wore the exact same gear. They wore the mask that had a star on it, and so they could do the switch,
Yeah.
and the behind the referee's back, and Brad just told him, said, "Dad, these guys would be great for Southeastern or Continental or whatever it was at the time." And so sure enough, my dad called Ole Anderson and said, "Hey, are you going to use these guys? Because we could use them." And Ole said, "Bob, they're really small." Well, Ole was looking for guys that were 6'4" and 6'5".
Yeah.
He wasn't looking for smaller guys. And my dad said, "Yeah, we don't care here. If they can work, that's what we care about." And he said, "Well, yeah, they can work." And so he said, my dad said, "Okay, send them to us." Geez, dude, they were here for, I mean, I don't even know, 8 or 9 years. I mean, a long, they wrestled as a tag team all the way up to being unmasked. And when they got unmasked, they had spiked hair and they bleached it blonde, and still painted a star on the eye, and they still did the switch. And the referee was like, "Wait, who was legal?" And they were just great. And every time, and I don't care what family member I tagged with, or if it was Steve and Brad or my dad and one of the brothers, no matter who the team, excuse me, those dudes performed, and we just gelled, man. We just clicked with those dudes, and they could go. And man, their work was so good. And look, in the South, we were family, and they were masked men trying to screw over the family. And come on, man, you don't want nobody is sitting down to Christmas dinner wants two guys with a mask on and try to screw them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Steal all their presents. And so that was kind of the I don't know, the idea of the whole thing. And so, but yeah, if you're asking if there was one team that we just always had great matches with, it was those guys. And back in those days, excuse me, the bump and feed. And I mean, like, we give my dad, beat me down, and I dive and give my dad that hot tag, and him come in and they were ping pong balls and constantly coming back at him. But their timing, unbelievable. I mean, truly, if those two dudes would have been each 6'2", right now we would talk about the top 5 tag teams in history, and they would be one of them. And that's the truth, man. That is the truth. They were great as a team, and ended up, then they ended up at the end breaking up and having a feud against each other, and they ran their course. But dude, did they draw some money in their time? They really did, here in this Southern territory, for sure.
Yeah, that's that I'm gonna have to go back and add that to my list of watch.
You
Is trying
should.
to find some Armstrong versus the Nightmares to put.
Yeah, you definitely should.
I may even throw that on a few episodes of the upcoming
Lost
Lost
Territories.
Territories,
Yeah.
which is we got our next guest coming in this month, Tom Pritchard. He'll be on with us,
Dr. Tom.
and
Good.
we're excited about that. But was there anybody that you tag teamed with outside of your family that you meshed with on the same level or similar to?
Yeah, yeah, Johnny Rich. Johnny Rich, Davey Rich. We did like a 6-man, like a three-man, like Freebird style. Like,
Yeah.
the three of us would go to the ring, and you never knew which two was going to be in a tag match, and which one would work a single. And so Johnny Rich and Davey Rich. So Johnny Rich was a legitimate cousin of Wildfire Tommy Rich, who was a superstar in Georgia for for years in the 80s. And then Davey Rich was a friend that they brought in and said, oh, he and Johnny are cousins on the other side of the family. And excuse me. And so anyway, they were, and so I did have good chemistry with those guys. Early in my career, it was Johnny Rich and Tonga Kid, who another one of the Fatu family, the Samoan family, and so we and I meshed with him great too. With he and I, it only the thinking into tag matches only worked if I sold in the tag team match and dove to give him the hot tag and let him make the comeback, because he was the wild child. His comeback was unbelievable. And, I was the small Southern guy. So it just didn't make sense to get heat on him and give me the comeback. It just didn't. And so, but I gelled really well with him too. I mean, and it's funny. I know I was just talking about two dudes having singles matches. The first few matches that we worked together as a tag team, that's exactly how it was, two singles matches. And I'll never forget my dad taking both of us aside and saying, hey, so guys, you guys are working like you're having two singles matches. And because I worked, the slow down Southern style, and he worked, nonstop balls to the wall. Here we go. And so, he literally had to kind of slow his pace down, and I had to pick my pace up, and we worked out more things where we tagged and helped. You know what I mean? We didn't do something and then say, "Okay, tag, your turn." We worked as a team and clawing to get, have the other guy clawing to get to his corner, and it was we later on we gelled, man, we did. So I had a good time, but yeah, Johnny Rich probably, because I worked with him with two different sets of teams. And so I would say he was honestly the only other family member, or the guy that I gelled with the most, like a family member, was Johnny Rich.
Yeah.
And a great human being too, man. I miss him. We had some great times together. Young, dumb, and invincible. Woo!
I was young, dumb, but I was not invincible. I'll tell you that.
We just thought we were. We just thought we were. Remember I told you I wrestled for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and dude, I woke up the next morning. I thought I'd been hit by an 18-wheeler. Oh my! And I didn't even take a bump. I don't heal like I used to, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, who would you say in today's time, looking at the tag team, where we're at in the world and in wrestling, there's some phenomenal tag teams, not only in WWE and AEW, but on the independent scene too. I mean, I know here in Georgia, we've got the last year's tag team of the year was Exotic Youth, but who would you say is the epitome of what tag team wrestling is right now?
So look, you're just to go ahead and lay the groundwork, Mike. You are asking an old wrestler who he thinks is the greatest tag team.
Yeah.
So if I think of just bell to bell inside the ring, mat wrestling, it would be Cash and what are they called now?
FTR.
FTR. Yes, because the work is phenomenal, and that's two dudes that work as one unit. Everything I've talked about on this episode, they are the example. And so when it comes to so that's in-ring performance, mat wrestlers, greatest tag team today, it's those dudes, in my opinion. The greatest, from the opening music to walking back through the curtain, the Usos. And so, and that's not just because of the family ties with the Usos or anything like that, but I do feel like the Usos are the guys that when little Timmy's mowing the yard at 12 years old, and and the neighbor kid comes over and goes, "Yeah, they have wrestling here in town tonight. I want to go." And the kid says, "Oh, who's here? Who's on the show?" The Usos. I feel like the little Timmy's going to go, "Dad, can you take us to wrestle? I want to see the Usos." I feel like they are a not just an attraction, but a money drawing attraction. And the minute you see them come through out with their music and come through the curtain, it's excitement and you're
Yeah.
excited. And then they get in the ring and they are exciting as a team, and they're twins. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing in the ring, you know what I mean, with each other. Their work is solid. They come out, they look like two grown men that will beat your ass at Walmart. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everything about them says what we do. And so, in 2022, going into 2023, they are my tag team of the year. And when it comes to inside the ring, mat wrestling, what I was raised on, FTR. And
Yeah.
those are my two teams, man. And look, I saw, FTR was with WWE while I was there as a producer, and I produced a lot of their matches, and I was on, God, I mean, hundreds of live events with them. And those dudes go out there, you didn't have to ask them, "Hey, can y'all get 20 minutes?" They'd get 20, and it would be 20 exciting minutes. And so, when I knew they were leaving, and I remember saying to them, "Hey guys, I know y'all are leaving for business reasons, but from my heart as an old dude, old wrestler, thank you for everything that you continually do for the business, because their work makes our business better. It makes it legitimate, and I appreciate it. And look, I'm glad they landed on their feet in AEW. I think it's great, and I hope one day. I hope for them they get everything they want in the business because their heart's in it. And I like both those dudes. They're always cool to me, and so I have nothing but positive for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think many people would disagree with you on those two tag teams being. I mean, they're neck and neck in many people's top, two
Sure.
right now. I know for me, I love both of them. I love to watch them, and I hope one day we get to see them work together again,
Yeah, me too. Me
like
too.
because it's going to be magic.
It'd be a
Uh,
bonus. Definitely a
so
bonus.
So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed us talking about tag team wrestling. But now we are going to get into every listener's favorite part of our podcast. It is the hashtag Ask Scott segment.
Mike, let's
Where you
reiterate. Let's reiterate. I always tell you what about these questions.
don't tell me, don't
Right?
tell you. I can't
Don't
tell you
tell
the
me.
questions.
And I feel like that's why people write in about this part of the show, is because they don't want to hear a rehearsed me time to think about it. They want off the cuff, raw answer. And believe me, that's what you're going to get. Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh man. So hey, I got some. I got a set of questions from one of our community members in the Facebook group. Again, the Armstrong Avenue podcast fans in the community. William Plummer. He reached out. He said, hashtag Ask Scott. Besides his family and the McMahons, who were his biggest influences in the business?
So, look, our dad never, right now, you want to know something about the inside behind the curtain of the wrestling business, you just go on your internet and there you go. You know what I mean? You Google it. But back in the day when there was no internet and I was just a young boy wrestling fan that got to see 1 hour of wrestling on TV every week, uh, I mean, there were like Dory and Terry Funk, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, and I literally worshiped those guys because they were family, and I had brothers, and I was a little boy, so I identified with those guys probably more than anybody else. Um, there were other, like Daryl Cochran. Look up that man. He was like an uncle to me and my brothers. He was a good man, and he was a positive role model in our lives as we grew up, and literally one of the very few wrestlers that um, my dad would have over to the house a lot, because he was a good human being, and he was good with all the sons, and positive. You know, it was another, when you think about it as a kid, how many real positive male role models did you have in your life? Most people, not many. And this guy was Daryl Cochran. I have a poster like from the 60s that was handed down from my dad to me. And it says, Mr. Muscles, Daryl Cochran. He was an Olympic lifter. And so anyway, he was a positive. Jack and Jerry Briscoe, Dory and Terry Funk. But as I got into my teen years and started learning about behind the scenes of the business, our dad never smartened us up to tell us anything. And, you know, later in life, I asked him, Dad, why didn't you ever tell us how it all worked? And he goes, I just thought as a kid you would enjoy it more. And he was right. You do enjoy wrestling when you don't, you know, now you look at these 20-year-olds on social media, or 15-year-olds on social media, and they go, oh, well, he shouldn't have done this and he shouldn't have. Well, it's not fun to them anymore, and you can see it in what they write. And so our dad never really smartened us up to how it worked so that we could enjoy it. But as I got older and started learning about it and learning about the actual work of it all, Ric Flair, man, somebody just posted a little clip of Ric Flair and Barry Windham, and just want to send positive vibes out to Barry Windham. He's going through a tough time in his life right now and had a heart attack, and we all wish him the best. And but it was Ric Flair and Barry Windham, and I was watching that match thinking, this Ric Flair is the guy that have idolized his work, and his in-ring performance, second to none, always brought it. 60-minute man, Space Mountain, the whole 9 yards. But he was influential. I watched his footwork. I watched his offense. I watched how he took a punch. I watched everything about him. And so I guess he was once I started, wishing I was into manhood, obviously earlier than I needed to be. As a kid, you always want to grow up, and then you grow up and go, oh no, I want to be a kid. And so that's kind of how it was when it came to Ric Flair. I wanted to emulate his work and his work ethic for sure. And he was the man. And so I hope that helps answer Mr. Plummer's question.
Oh, I think it did. I know he asked some more questions, but I just want to thank Mr. Plummer for reaching out.
Yeah,
I
thank
know
you.
we can't get to every question, but I will ask one more from him. Did you ever work with Magnum TA?
Never worked with him. My dad and brother, Brad, were on many, many shows with him back in the day when Magnum was having the most unbelievable run ever. And I think Dusty, Magnum, my dad, Brad, Nikita Koloff, there was a crew back then that, man, did they rock. And Magnum was a top star at that time. So yeah, Brad and my late brother Brad and my late father Bullet Bob, they were on many shows with him, but not me. Now, since then, I've been on some of the, like Ric Flair's last match. We did that whole autograph thing, and Magnum sat right beside me and my brother Brian. So, and WrestleCon, I've been able to see him a few times here in the past year. So that's been really cool, and talk to him. And, in this business, old dudes all stick together. We all pull for each other. And so, but he had great memories about my family, and they had, really cool memories about him. So it's great to see him. But no, never wrestled him, and never on any shows with him.
Yeah. Well, William, I hope that answered a couple of your questions, man. Thank you for for asking, man. So we're going to move on to our next question also from the Facebook community. Don Davis, #Ask Scott. Before or after Smoky Mountain Wrestling, was there ever an opportunity to join WWE as a wrestler?
No. And it wasn't from lack of trying. When my brother Road Dogg was hired, that place was, that WWF at the time was referred to as the land of giants because they just wanted big dudes. And if you go back and look at that time in wrestling, everybody was pretty big. And anybody that was small was a character or were highlighted. There weren't just a bunch of small wrestlers. And then once, once WCW came into play, well, they started using Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn and Chris Benoit and all those guys, were under 6 feet or either right at it. And so, but they were highlighted as a foursome. So it was hard to get in. And then as a referee, I was told I was too well known because I'd been on WCW for, 7 years. Getting beat, yes, probably won 5 matches in 7 years, but
the curse,
but still, yeah, the curse and the curse being talked about throughout those years helped make people know who I was. And so, as I tried to get in as a referee, they just said, "You're too well known. We don't," and that's not what. In other words, a referee is not supposed to take away from a match. A referee is supposed to be there to, like I've said, be invisible until it's time to be seen in every match. But you want to highlight the superstars. You don't want to highlight the referee. And so I understood that. That's business. I got it. And that's, I moved on. And so then eventually all
right back full circle, man.
All the time goes by. And I ended up as a referee anyway. So it all happens like it's supposed to, man. It
That's
just
right. That's right. Oh man, that was a good question because
very good.
You do look at that time period in WWE. Everybody was 6'4" or up.
Yeah,
and that's why when I met your brother, I was like, God, I didn't realize he was this tall.
Yep,
because everybody else was 6'9".
Yeah, that's true, man. It's true. It was the land of giants, and that's what in the locker rooms everywhere I went. That's what we called it, the land of giants.
I wonder who was would you say the first person to break that going into the WWF or WWE would be Chris Jericho?
So to actually get the big highlight and kind of break it, I've always felt like it was that foursome I just named, Dean, Eddie, Perry Saturn, and Chris Benoit. I always felt like it was that because once you take 4 smaller guys and make them megastars, well, now you can break them off. Yeah. And once you start breaking them off into singles, well, who do they wrestle? You put them with other smaller guys to get them over or to do what you have to do with them. And so I always felt like those 4 dudes being, part of the WCW buyout or whatever it was called at the time. I don't know. I got that
invasion angle.
The invasion. And so I feel like that within itself opened the door for smaller guys in the land of giants, so to speak.
Yeah. And if you guys want to see, I know people don't really talk about Chris Benoit, but I don't care right now. If you guys want to see some of the best matches I've ever seen in my life, you go to WCW and watch those 7 matches he had with Booker T.
Yeah, they had great matches, man. That's a whole. One day we can do that whole episode on Chris Benoit. We can't get into it now. Well, we'll talk.
Yeah, we can get into that one day if you guys want us to. But but for sure. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you.
Me too.
To William and Don. And listen, guys, join our Facebook community. It's growing every day, and you guys can ask questions. We'll answer them on the podcast. Share your pictures, share your stories. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about more stuff. Hey, maybe next time we could talk about some more stories that you guys want us to talk about. I don't know.
And I really would like to know on the Facebook group if you would like to hear the Benoit story. It's very emotional for me because I knew all parties involved, but at the same time, if it's too much of a downer for one of these podcasts, I don't want to do it. But if you want to know the details, I mean, me and Chavo Guerrero were there for the everything. So let me know. And I don't mean to end this podcast on a downer. I don't mean to at all. Christmas is coming. I hope everybody's getting ready. I know you've probably all been out there shopping for my Christmas gifts. So I will always accept a collar and elbow T-shirt or Bones Coffee. Code Armstrong will already save you some money on both of those.
That's right. Hey guys, and look, just listening to our podcast and sharing it to all your friends is a good enough Christmas gift for me.
Amen. Amen.
And hey, make sure you download that IWN app also before we get out of here. I gotta plug that one.
Amen.
Hey, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, like and subscribe. I'm Big Mike, the host. That's at WWE Armstrong on Twitter. We're gonna get out of here.